Welcome to Skill 1, competitor. Here we teach you the skill to eat powerful foods. This is the skill you're now going to use for the rest of your life with all your meals and snacks going forward.
Note that at the top right-hand corner of the foods list, there's a legend, and on it we have a barbell. This barbell denotes any food that's a source of iron, and we say the power to restore you. Iron is one of those key ingredients inside many different foods that can make or break an athletic performance. If you do not have a high enough amount of iron, you cannot make blood that is going to carry the oxygen around your body as efficiently as possible. So make sure you're having sources of iron all the time, and you can use the legend to see what foods you are eating that have iron in it. You'll also see the plus symbol, and this plus symbol denotes significant amounts of hidden fats in the food you're eating. Make sure that you also know that fat is slow to digest. And when you get to skill 2, the skill to eat on time, you're going to learn why this matters, why the fats and the timing of eating those fats matter. So first, learn which foods have them, and then watch the skill 2 where you're going to learn how to use that information to your competitive advantage.
Let's walk you through each of the 3 powerful categories. First, we have the category of energizers. These are the foods that are going to give you energy to move quickly. Then we have the category of muscle builders. These are the foods that are going to give you those building blocks to build strong, resilient muscles. Finally, we have the food category that we love called the superfoods. Yes, these foods are amazing. Sometimes we call them magic foods. These are the foods that have the hidden powers to increase your abilities to see, hear, even to defend and breathe. With all of these powers, you're going to be a more performing person. And we want you to be looking at this list, this Eat This for Performance foods list often. So now we give you the task of going to print the food list at least 3 times, having it in 3 places where you go often. Maybe work or school, maybe a sport or an activity you go to. Put it in your bag, a car, have it printed. Now we want you to be eating for performance all the time. And so that does mean eating from this list. And it does mean that we're not prescribing you a diet. We do not believe in diets at Eat This for Performance. In fact, we consider that diets are the enemy to a high performance. Restrictive eating is the enemy. We want to avoid that mentality. So eat at liberty from the food list. So you might be wondering, what about something that's not on the foods list that you want to eat? And I'm not just talking about foods like ice cream or chocolate bars. You might understand those aren't performance foods. You might be looking at something like a granola bar. So what you're going to do in this case is you're going to look at the ingredient list and you're going to check what are those ingredients on the ingredient list. So you can actually take a product right now, a box, go to your pantry, find something and look at the ingredients with me. Why don't we look for the first 5 ingredients in the food that you're looking at? If you don't even have 5 ingredients, that's fine. It's the first 5 that are going to tell you the main thing that you're eating. And if your first ingredient is oats, then you can imagine that's mostly what you're eating in that food. And oats are on the performance foods list. So now you know you're eating a performance food. It's just been what we call processed. Processing is what happens when you take the food from the farm and you put it through different techniques, baking, chopping, anything that you can imagine you might do to food, blending. So all of those things are called processing. Now you can do them at home. When you make a recipe, you process food. You might cut up the vegetables. You might puree the apples into applesauce. You're processing the food. It's not a bad thing if you use those ingredients from the foods list. It could still be very performance enhancing. But we want you to be aware of processing that changes the way your body uses the food. So if you have something that's processed all the way down to a very simple form of the food, it's going to digest differently in your body. And we're going to teach you about that in this course.
Here is a rule of thumb with ingredients on the food label. We want you to pay close attention to the first 5 ingredients you see and relate them back to the foods list. In the example we just gave you, you will see oats. They are an energizer on the foods list. Corn syrup. This is a very processed corn product that is essentially the pure sugar in the corn, not on the foods list. Cashews, a superfood nut, on the foods list. In safflower oil, a processed version of a flour, not on the foods list. Sugar, a very processed cane juice, if you didn't know that. This is not on the foods list. We're not saying that this granola bar product is, quote, good or, quote, bad here. We are simply inviting you to understand exactly what you are eating so that when you learn the ET4P skills, you can apply them to any product you ever eat using the rule of looking closely at those first 5 ingredients.
Now you might be wondering about the number part of the label where you see things like number of calories. I encourage you to look at this when you take on the next mission after mission 1. So we do have some next missions. The next one is mission X that you can take on to deepen your mastery of performance eating following mission 1. All right, back to the mission.
Finally, I want to remind you that you are going to need to print out that food list a few times, have it in a few places, so go do that now. And I will just give you a recap here of what you learned. You learned today to eat powerful foods and those 3 categories, the energizers, the muscle builders, and the superfoods. And you learned that if you find a food not on the food list, that you're going to check the ingredients first to see if you actually are eating a food from the foods list.